When you know that you are queer, but your favorite drink is beer, that's gayish. You can bottom without stopping, but you can't stand going shopping, that's gayish. Oh, gayish, you're probably gayish. Well, life's just too short for narrow stereotypes, so it's gayish. We're also gayish. It's Gayish with Mike and Kyle.
Hello, everyone in the podcast universe. This is Gayish,
the podcast that thinks you're pretty okay.
Me in particular?
Or interpret how you will.
The royal you?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, great.
Yeah, that's from Brandon. Thanks, Brandon. I liked that one.
Thanks, Brandon. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz.
And we're here to bridge the gap between sexuality and actuality. And today, my goodness.
Today, we're going to talk about the most famous of states.
Yes.
Pennsylvania. We're going to talk about Pennsylvania.
We're going to talk about Pennsylvania because it's not okay. It's PA. We are. And we're going to have known daddy legislator, former legislator Brian Sims on to talk about his home state and why it's so fucked.
Yeah. Oh, is that going to be one of your questions? Why are you so fucked?
Yeah. I have 3 bullet points. Pennsylvania, why so fucked?
What are the other 2?
What is your origin story? Mm-hmm. And can we blame your man for this interview?
In a way we can, but you'll have to stick around to hear why.
Yeah. After the jump. No, do people say that anymore?
After the break.
Everybody, I'm in India right now.
You are.
I am fucking exhausted.
So we're going to have a fun Mike here with us today.
Fun Mike.
Yeah.
That's what I should name my microphone.
Oh.
Okay. Do we chat enough?
Yeah, I think so.
Great. Here's the news.
Shut your mouth hole. It's time for your ear holes. News.
Jesus Christ, go. I don't have a Gayest, Straightest yet. Does that matter? We can deal with that later,
not yet.
Right?
It doesn't matter yet.
All right. Maybe I just won't this time. What do you think? Maybe
we'll skip this one.
Yeah, we just didn't this time.
I don't like this.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. News the first. So the state of Colorado has agreed to pay over $1.5 million in legal fees to a web designer who refused to provide creative content for a same-sex couple's wedding. We've covered this story a couple of times over the years, but basically there was a web designer in Colorado who said, I'm not doing no faggot marriage websites. And then they sued because that's illegal in Colorado. And then the Supreme Court ultimately said, yeah, Colorado, you can't do that. So that's 303 Creative LLC versus Alenis. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in favor of a Christian web designer, making it legal on free speech grounds for businesses that provide custom or expressive services to decline to provide services if doing so was against their beliefs. And yeah. So it makes sense that the next step, if they didn't do anything wrong, would be then also we shouldn't have to pay our lawyers. That's sort of a tradition in this country that, if you didn't do anything wrong, you shouldn't have to pay money. So,
right.
Anyway, so the court at that time said that it's just certain kinds of businesses that get to do that. And they made it about whether it's expressive or not, which basically they're saying is it art, which I've made a lot of shitty websites in my life. They are not art, but that's whatever.
Yeah, I've made the Gayish podcast website. It is not art. Sorry, everybody.
You said it, not me. I love our website. It's wonderful.
Yes, it's great. It's art.
It is art.
It's my expression of my inner humanity.
It's protected by the First Amendment, Kyle.
Oh, great. Put whatever crazy shit on there I want then.
If you hadn't been already, here it goes. So the state of Colorado is going to have to pay a bunch of money, which I don't know. It's a state. It's probably fine. It's not like it's some, it's not the couple that has to pay it, for instance, which that would be super fucked up.
Yeah.
But, just, I'm worried elections matter, everybody. We're going to talk about that a whole bunch today. And dickbag fuckface asshole Trump is the reason that this ruling happened and why it's more likely in the future. And if he's reelected, even more so.
Because he appointed some of the judges or something?
Yes. And we have lifetime appointments to the Supreme Court. Like any old asshole that the president wants, if he can get enough votes in the Senate to confirm them, which really that's just a question of who's running the Senate, not who actually should be sitting in that court. Yeah. Anyway, between Gorsuch and that beer drinking one, it's full of dickbag fuckface assholes, and that's why things like this are happening. So
yeah, that sucks.
Oh, okay, great. Let's talk about something even more depressing then, if that's possible.
Sure, let's do it.
So, if you have not been following the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, everybody, Asheville, North Carolina is hurting. That's not a place where hurricanes usually happen, and they got absolutely fucking fucked. And the gayish angle here, though, is that there is a gay couple that started a bar, and it opened on August 22nd in Asheville, North Carolina. That was, quote, a dream to create an inclusive, queer-owned safe space and meetup spot for the community, which, just in case it goes without saying, like, North Carolina needs more of that. Like, they need more gay bars than we do.
Yeah. Oh, no.
But yeah, they lost everything. So they took out $200,000 in loans, and just 1 month into being open, it's now like basically a swimming pool. Quote, the building is destroyed. Everything that we bought for the business is either gone, broken, or covered in sewage and mud, which it's a gay bar. Of course it is. But, quote, to walk into a place that my husband and I have poured our hearts and soul and money and resources and all of our time into, seeing it all covered in mud and ripped apart was a gut punch. They are trying to get a hold of their insurance company to see how much of that is going to be recoverable. But they said, we're brand new business owners who've never had to deal with insurance before or a natural disaster. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, that's true. Everyone there is like, I don't know how to do this. Do you know? No, I don't know how to do this. Do you? No.
Yeah. Which that, I don't know. Like, you don't want to be like a doomsday prepper or whatever, but you should maybe at the very least, like, know who to call when bad shit happens. And
I don't know. Oh, I do know. Yuki is my insurance agent. So I know I would know to call Yuki.
Oh, like an actual person. Like, you know, the person to call.
I know the person to call. Yep.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Well, normally I try to shy away from things like GoFundMe for different causes, but if you are interested in giving money to this couple to rebuild, or at the very least eat food, there's a link to their GoFundMe in the Discord server.
Oh, great.
Great. News the last.
Yeah.
This is fucking infuriating, Kyle.
Oh, no. Usually you bring us up on the last news story.
I can't this time.
Not this week.
I'm too tired.
Okay. Okay.
So basically, there's a bunch of conservatives on X, formerly known as Twitter, claiming that U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has HIV, is HIV positive.
Ugh.
So a parody account posted it, and then because they can't tell the difference between facts and fiction, a bunch of MAGA pundits picked it up and rebroadcast it as being true. Breaking 911 on X, for instance, at Breaking 911 on X, said, breaking, Pete Buttigieg reveals that he is HIV positive. So here's the thing. Even if he were HIV positive, who cares?
Right.
And the fact that they think that this is something that is worthy of their derision is asinine. Yeah. They just want to remind everybody that he does butt stuff.
Right.
Because that means he's a bad person.
Right. They think it's an insult to say that someone's HIV positive. Like, they're using it like it's some kind of damning critique on who he is or something, which it's not. and the way they're treating this is real shitty.
Well, and one more example of like they literally do not know or care or both what is true. They just don't. They'll say whatever they have to do to win. They play dirty and believe whatever they want to believe. And I just there's even studies that have suggested that media literacy is worse on the right than it is on the left, and like people are bad consumers of information on the right. And unfortunately, it's going to be a close election still between Kamala and Donald, because half of the country just doesn't seem to care about what's true and listens to that orange bloated fuckface.
Yeah. One of the things that's going to help decide this election, Mike, Pennsylvania.
I know, right? It's true.
We should do an entire episode on it.
We're going to. It's mostly so we can talk to Brian. But also Pennsylvania is important. Anyway, just somebody having HIV is not a thing that we should be just like talking about, much less as an insult or a thing that disqualifies somebody who is a competent and successful member of the administration.
Yeah, for sure.
Fuck those guys.
Fuck them.
That's the news.
Speaking of people we don't want to fuck, well, wait,
we didn't say that.
Hold on. I don't know whether or not we want to fuck these individuals quite yet. We need more information from them in order to determine.
Depends on what kind of fuck, right? Like,
depends on the kind of fuck. Here are people we give fucks about. Thank you to Mark Samuels. That is Mark with a C, in case I didn't pronounce it C enough.
Isn't that somebody's pen name?
Oh, wasn't that Mark Twain? No. Something Sam. What was Mark Twain's pen name? It doesn't matter.
Mark Twain was a pen name. His real name was Samuel Clemens, who also doesn't give us money because he's dead.
He doesn't give us money. His estate should. Thank you to Marina Sprague. Thank you to
Okay.
Just confirming. Just double checking. Thank you to Anthony Earlam, maybe?
Earlam?
Maybe? Irelam?
Tony, thank you.
Thank you. And Brad Cole, whose name I probably got right.
Did you save it for last because you knew?
No, it was just the latest person.
Oh, you do them in order?
I do them in order. That's usually. Unless one is really funny, and then I put it at the end.
Oh, okay. Well, hear that, Brad? There's nothing funny about your name.
Yeah. If you want bonus episodes, bonus segments, if you want ad-free episodes a day early, if you want to support the show, hole. If you want to use Mike's hole, then join us over on Patreon. We have precisely 60 bonus episodes that you could go listen to. Go to patreon.com/Gayish podcast.
Do it.
All right. Do you want to talk about Pennsylvania?
Oh, do I?
You sound ready and excited to do this. I am really excited to talk to Brian Sims.
Yeah. He's hot. Why not?
And he's also really successful and intelligent. Okay. Great. Why did you want to talk about Pennsylvania, Mike? You care much more about geography and politics and...
Okay. The reason why is, well, first of all, we're responsible for his marriage, but also the election is coming up, and the way we do elections in this country is super fucked. I mean, super duper fucked, because it's not the winner of the popular vote that wins the presidency, but rather each state has a certain number of electoral college votes assigned to it based on population, roughly, in that it's the number of members of Congress that they have. So every state gets at least 2 for their senators and at least 1 for their representative. But other states, the more population they have, the more people they have in the House of Representatives, so the more electoral college votes they get. Pennsylvania has 19 electoral votes and is like neck and neck right now, 50-50 between Harris and Trump. And is like one of a handful of states that's going to actually decide the election. And so it's just super critical. And Brian Sims is a guy who has been a Democrat from the legislature in Pennsylvania and has been successful at that and understands that state. And I really just want to understand what Pennsylvania, what are they thinking? Because Pennsylvania is historically a blue state that voted for Democrats for a really long time. And most of that is because of labor. Democrats have been the party of unions for a long time. And at some point in the Rust Belt, that started to shift. And states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, all like started to move away from the Democratic Party. Michigan comes to mind. And I wanted to talk to him when the opportunity came up to talk to him because he's hot and gay. Like the thing to talk to him about is exactly all of this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I want to tell you a skosh of data about Pennsylvania.
Okay, what about Pennsylvania, Kyle?
This is from the Williams Institute, my go-to source when we talk about anything geography. Mm-hmm. So I looked at where Pennsylvania ranks in terms of LGBT population compared to other states. So just for reference, Oregon is the most LGBT states with 5.6% of the population identifying as LGBT.
Of course they are. Look at fucking weirdos in Oregon.
Yep, totally. Weirdos. You heard us, Portland. The next ones on the list are Nevada, Massachusetts, California, Washington.
Those please.
Are what?
Nevada is second?
Yeah.
What? Is it all of the show queens? They're like helping all of those pop divas do their residencies? I have
no idea.
That blows me away. Especially because Nevada is a purple state. Like Nevada also could go either way. Like Pennsylvania, Nevada is like right on the tipping point right now. Like the closest states right now are Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and then Nevada.
Let's switch and do an episode about Nevada instead. Okay. Yes, that is the second gayest state. Where does Pennsylvania rank, Mike? What number?
24.
Holy shit.
What?
It's 24.
Are you kidding me?
No.
That's great.
Wow. In all our podcasting years, whenever I've asked you something, you've come close before, but I don't think you've ever just gotten it right on the head.
Does that mean I win double? Or does it mean I win both showcases?
Yes, exactly. Spay and neuter your pets, everybody. It has 4.1%.
I love a good Bob Barker joke.
Yeah. Is he still alive?
Mm-mm.
Oh, no. It has 4.1% of their population identifying as LGBT. So it's kind of right there in the middle. It's not super gay. It's not super straight. Does that make it bisexual? Is it our...
The city of brotherly love is Philadelphia. That's in Pennsylvania.
But that's not gay to love your brother.
That's just incest, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Brother metaphorically.
Mm.
And Pittsburgh is where Queer as Folk took place.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, Mike, it is.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So many drug-addled twinks in that show.
Yeah, so much sex. Yeah, so that's all the gate. I just wanted to tell you ranked 24 and get that fun surprising moment where you hit it on the head. You
ding,
love
ding, ding, ding,
good
ding, ding,
head.
Oh God, Kyle, delirious. This is going to be great. You're going to have to do the heavy lifting in this interview.
I'm going to have to do a lot of editing on this.
Well, when we get back from the break, we're going to take a break. And when we get back from the break, we're going to have former Representative Brian Sims on to talk about Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Are you ready for that, Kyle?
I'm so ready for that.
Should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
Break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
All right. So are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
Nope, we're not gonna do our Gayest, Straightest.
That's
Jesus
later,
Christ. That's later, Kyle. Stick around, Kyle. He will need you later. We are here with Brian Sims. Welcome.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here on. We're so excited to talk to you.
Are we supposed to call you Representative Sims, the former Representative Sims? Are we supposed to call you Your Honor, or like?
Honestly, I tend to try to make anybody under the age of 18 call me Your Honor or Honorable. Neither of you are. So no, Brian, no, Brian will do.
Dare you.
I think the honorific attaches so long as I stay in Pennsylvania. And even like my shitty colleagues that like lost their seats for bad reasons and went to jail still get the honorific. So it doesn't really mean much.
Okay. Well, so, I mean, for me, I would just never leave Pennsylvania just to always be able to force people to call me representative.
Just walk the grounds of the Commonwealth for the rest of my life, right up to the edge of the border.
We're the same age. I'm reading your bio. Like, I
know you look so much better than I do at 46.
Oh, come on now. This is just good lighting.
No, it's the porn lighting. It really does you right.
Yeah.
Your hotel does look like you could film a porn there, Mike.
This for sure happened. Just
it looks kind of familiar, actually.
Some OnlyFans content has been created there for sure.
Do you have a blacklight with you?
No.
Good.
No, I
it's a
do
good
not.
thing.
That's for the best.
Like to check the bed. Is that what you're?
Walls. There it is.
Ceiling.
Don't touch any light switches.
We're going to talk about your hotel choices here in a little bit. Okay. So Brian, you we're the same age, so that's great. And you somehow meandered your way into the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. Why did you do that?
Oh, that's kind of a good way of putting it. I say that because after having done it, I realized that I worked with lots and lots of people, majority of people that I worked with in the House who thought that they were going to be there from a young age, that just knew their whole lives they were going to be. And that was not my path at all. I ended up there like some of my favorite colleagues, I guess, because I was pissed off about the work that was getting done or who was doing it or how it was getting done. My parents were both Army colonels, lieutenant colonels. And so I'm from a little bit everywhere and not from Pennsylvania. And when my parents retired from the Pentagon, they moved there when I was in middle school. And I graduated from high school and college in Pennsylvania. And then I moved there after law school to sort of practice. I was a disability attorney for a while, and I was working in LGBTQ civil rights in a state that had no out elected officials at the statewide level, never had. And I'd learned somewhere along the way that was sort of the key to getting LGBTQ civil rights at the statewide level, was electing out people. And so I tried for a number of years to do that through a few organizations. And then my own elected official said a couple of things that I thought were just wildly transphobic. It was someone that was supposed to be our big champion for civil rights. And so I met with her. I told her I was going to run against her. She told me to go fuck myself. I won by a very small margin and then spent the next 10 years sort of, trying to deliver on the promises that I made to people.
Okay, East Coast, West Coast. I mean, go fuck yourself. Is that a direct quote? Because that's something.
It is a direct quote. It's actually the best story. So she was, her name was Babette Josephs, and everyone called her Babette. And she was probably 5'4", fiery as hell. And it was part of the reason I'd liked her a long time. This was a Democrat I voted for, but she had stopped championing the things that I and lots of others needed her to champion in the way that we needed her to, and she was just mean as shit. And a mean liberal has some utility, but I felt like I had lost a lot of the utility that she was bringing to the job. And so when I met with her, I'd kind of practiced what I was going to say. And I got to her office, and, elevator opens up. There's this glass door. You have to get buzzed to get in. And I go in and I tell this person behind the counter, I'm here to meet with Babette. And she clearly knew why I was there. And Babette comes walking out the back room and she goes, "Get the fuck out in the hallway. We're not even doing this in here." And I kind of stumble out into the hallway, and she slams the door behind her so hard I thought the glass was going to break. And she spins around and she looks at me and she goes, "Fuck this." And she decides to go back into her office, but she was locked out. The same door that had to be buzzed to let me in had to let her in, but that person wasn't there anymore. And I'm guessing they were somewhere in back, like, it's happening. They're doing whatever. But she just starts pounding on her door. And I lean up like kind of quietly against the wall next to her. And I say, Representative Josephs, I'm going to run the largest, cleanest, healthiest race in the history of this district, and I'm going to beat you because of it. And she told me to go fuck myself. And then I pressed the button for the elevator, and I sat there with her in that same little like corridor for the next minute and a half while she was waiting for someone to open the door and I was waiting for the elevator to open. And I actually think I got on the elevator first. But it was it kind of made me like her more. I don't know. My mom's an Army colonel. She has a mouth like a truck driver, and it made me relate to her a little bit more. But I kind of delivered on the promise. I ran a very large, very disciplined race, and I won by 233 votes my first election.
Wow.
That had to have been the most deliciously awkward 90 seconds in the history of mankind, right?
In my whole lifetime, if there'd ever been a camera hovering above me, I would have paid to watch, and the abject fear on my face. I'd love to tell you I was tough as shit about it all, but I don't know. She'd been in office for 28 years. She was she was a real fiery. I think she was an attorney as well. I don't know. I was terrified of her, and I didn't want it to show. And so I've never prayed for an elevator door to open up as much as I was for that. And it was me at my coolest, right? I had gone to have a conversation with her, and when she lost her shit, I decided to be really chill, just play it real chill. And that's where I'd left it. And so I was glad that I never broke that moment because it was about to break.
Wow. That's not the interaction you want from your elected official, though, because you want to be able to have a conversation with them and talk through some of the policy choices and decisions you made. That seems super frustrating as well.
It was. Everybody in politics always asks about those two moments. It's one when you tell someone that you're going to run against them, and the other is the phone call, the night of the election, right? And everybody asks about those two things. The night of the election, I did not hear from her. In fact, we had a running bet in my office about whether we would. And 6 days after the election results had been certified, she left a message on my machine that said, Representative-elect Sims, this is State Representative Babette Josephs. You're in the hot seat now. And she hung up. And that was that. A couple months later, I went in to have the database from the office turned over to my new office and my new chief of staff. And she unplugged the computer. And I think she thought that meant the information was gone. I had a conversation with the computer information folks in the Capitol and just move forward with it. But yeah, it was a part of an era that I was desperately trying to get away from.
Yeah. In addition to being the first openly LGBT legislator, you also, even though you grew up Irish Catholic, you didn't run with any kind of religious affiliation, which I think is a notable part about what you did. Did that ever come up during the campaign? He's not Christian, or did that ever matter?
It did come up a couple of times. I remember at some point, maybe my first term, the American Humanist Society had me come in and speak. And I don't identify as a humanist either. I don't identify as nothing. And doing a little homework. And during the introduction of my speech, they were like, and the only fifth legislator in American history did not identify as. And I thought, oh shit, I don't think I realized that. I was never gonna put the cat sort of back in the bag. I know nothing about religion. I'm not judgmental of people's faith, so long as they don't use their faith to be judgmental of me. But beyond that, I don't really care about people's religions in the way I don't need them to care about my hobbies, my sexuality, my lifestyle, nothing, so long as it doesn't impact them. And I living in Philadelphia, the reason that I think I got to run as someone who is agnostic is because I was running from Center City, Philadelphia, a place that has lots and lots and lots of different types of people. And I think that I didn't have to teach anybody what it meant to not be Christian or to not be Jewish or to be not. I'm not atheist, really. I think that implies a little bit more caring than I actually have in the situation. But it's funny. Yeah, it came up more after the fact than during. I think a lot of people were really focused on two things: that I was gay and that I was running against a 30-year incumbent.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it like with the focus being on you being gay? Did that bother you? Did you want it to be more on your plans and policies, or did you mind?
In my case, it was a good vehicle for policy. I'm a civil rights attorney, and a lot of the work that I've done in my career is women's and reproductive rights, racial and ethnic justice, and LGBTQ civil rights. And they largely fall in many of the same places, both inequality law specifically, but also in the sort of and like the way that people conceptualize civil rights in America, they all kind of they're kind of lumped together. So for me, it allowed me to talk about not just my values and my beliefs, which is what all candidates are supposed to do, but also let me talk about the things that I had done with them, my accomplishments, if you will. How did I turn what I thought into action, and why were those actions the kind that I thought a potential voter should care about when making a value judgment about me? And so in that way, it was really, really helpful to have to be a gay man doing LGBTQ plus civil rights. I'd also, I mean, it's sort of a fundamental part of the reason, it's like that all of us as cis gay white men, part of the reason I have any understanding of marginalization and otherness is because of my gayness. And the better that I could understand and sort of approach that, I knew was going to allow me to be the sort of best feminist that I could be on the floor, the best, anti-racist that I could be on the floor. And so it wasn't so much leaning into the identity as I was really trying to make sure that the things that I had gleaned from my identity, including the policy work, that I was translating that to people, that I wasn't just talking about what I wanted to do. I was talking about who I was, how that had impacted me, and what I had done with it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I'm willing to bet that there are Republican members that you might be the only gay person that they were forced to talk to with any regularity. Do you think there's any sort of humanizing factor because of that?
In fact, to be honest with you, it's even more than just anecdotally. We know that to be true. One of the leading indicators of whether or not a state will pass LGBTQ civil rights of any kind is if they've had an out legislator. And oftentimes it's not that legislator themselves that is the prime sponsor, the impetus of a lot of LGBTQ civil rights legislation. It's the exposure to them, to your point exactly. Now, do I think that suddenly there were all these Republicans in places where they had just never been around queer people meeting a gay person for the first time? No, but it was sort of the in many ways their hoods were off, right? They couldn't pretend that they had never met a queer person, or they couldn't pretend that their aunt and her friend weren't anything other than lesbians, right? Like I think I robbed people of the excuse that they were giving themselves, or more importantly, that they were giving to their constituents about why they weren't supporting queer people by saying, I've never met one. Well, that's, the 2000 census said that LGBTQ plus people were in 99.8% of counties in America. It was 24 years ago. Every Republican that I've ever worked with has met LGBTQ plus people. I mean, I'll tell you that my capital and most capitals that I've ever been to are filled with LGBTQ staff. And there's not often much of a divide between Republican and Democratic staff when it comes to LGBTQ numbers. And so, yeah, I told myself that to maybe, Kyle, to answer your question about what did my sort of outness have to do with it. There is a big difference between people seeing gay in theory and seeing gay in practice. Knowing that I'm a gay man, but looking at me thinking I just look like a regular cis white straight man in a picture or from across a room, or if I'm silent, doesn't accomplish the same things as seeing me holding my boyfriend's hand, or seeing me at a pride festival, or hearing me talk about how bodily autonomy, whether for women or LGBTQ people, is a fundamental human right. And so trying to make sure that I was bridging those things was really important, both for sort of why I put myself in this shit out situation to begin with and what I wanted to get out of it.
It's easy to hate an idea, and it's harder to hate a person. And like once there's a human there, I think that makes it a lot more difficult to sort of harbor those dehumanizing prejudices that people have.
Well, unless that human sucks, every one of us knows, one person that we think represents, a bunch of people we don't know, but that one person might suck, and so you try hard not to be that person too.
Yeah.
Wait, were you in office at the same time that the Downton Abbey guy was in DC? Aaron
Schock. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the white belt guy.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, I remember hearing about Aaron Schock a lot early on when I was in office, and other than I think we all should have issued like a fatwa on his penis. No gay man should have ever gone anywhere near Aaron Schock again after that. I'm glad I've never run into him, and I've never seen him at anything.
Yeah.
I also don't go to like Sieges.
For Fire Island or whatever he was seen at here recently. He's been on an apology tour too, I think. Okay, well, let's talk about Pennsylvania. So in 2024, Pennsylvania went for Biden, but by like the smallest of margins. But
2020.
2020. Sorry. And then, but in 2016 went for Trump. The last Democrat to lose Pennsylvania before Hillary, was Michael Dukakis in 88. Like Pennsylvania was a Democratic stronghold for decades. Why did Pennsylvania go for Trump?
Yeah, there are a couple of very defining characteristics about Pennsylvania that I think do set it apart from other states. And the first and foremost, it is that it is the least traveled populace of any state in America. The average Pennsylvanian will die within something like 21 miles of where they were born. And there's a silver lining to that. And from what I remember from the data is that the other states in like the top 5 were all places where people didn't feel like they had an opportunity to leave. And Pennsylvania was a place where people didn't want the opportunity to leave. They wanted to stay where they were. But what that's created is it's created a lot of people who haven't traveled a whole lot. Now, to your point you were making earlier about sort of different people and how you get to interact with different people, travel is one of the 2 leading indicators of how a person will view civil rights in America. The more you travel, the more you realize either we're all special or none of us are special. But the idea that you're something and everybody else is something else really disappears quickly when you travel. And so Pennsylvania has 67 counties that in many ways operate like 67 independent states within the Commonwealth. I like our government. We have a divided government. We elect, we've had, other than there's been a lot of gerrymandering from Republicans in the House and the Senate, but we may be a little close to like Massachusetts. We can have Republican governors and Democratic houses and Senates and vice versa. And I think a lot of people think that speaks to a real divisive nature. And I think it speaks to the opposite. It means we can all kind of be around each other. You can have Republicans and Democrats live next door to each other in Pennsylvania in ways that they don't often in other parts of the country. And yeah, a lot of the counties in Pennsylvania are red, but a lot of the counties in Pennsylvania don't have huge populations. And it's like when you see those maps of the U.S. about where you're reminded that land doesn't vote, that people vote. And you see that it's the circles versus just the blanketing of red and blue. Pennsylvanians are people that are not very liberal and not deeply conservative. I think that if there was we all joke about what a third party would look like and how most of us would be in it. Most Pennsylvanians would be in that center third party. I think that there is a frustration from Pennsylvanians on the right when things go too far to the left. And I think there's a frustration from Democratic Pennsylvanians when things get too far to the right. And I think that's part of the reason Pennsylvania is so important right now. These are not California Democrats, and these are not Alabama Republicans. They're a lot like the Democrats and Republicans that our parents were. And so they're a little bit more higher information, but they want more local data. They're deeply political. Pennsylvanians are used to people knocking on their door, twice a year, talking, usually candidates themselves. I've campaigned in all 67 counties in Pennsylvania. I've knocked on doors and people are used to it. And so I think what happens is that there's this tendency with our crap politics of late to think that every place that has nuanced change is because of how divisive and crackdown it is. And I don't think that's Pennsylvania. I think it's, we're a state that's got a couple 100-year history of being very politically influenced and influential.
It's interesting. The thing that I'm worried about actually is not just divisiveness, but is it because Hillary has a vagina?
I think it was for Hillary. In fact, I even think that because I hear that from women a lot. I certainly remember speaking to older Democratic women that didn't like Hillary, and they would say, it might be because I've been taught not to like her. And I think that's a very real thing. And is there rampant sexism among all voters, including Democratic voters? Yeah, the data is really clear about that. And is there racism among all voters, including Democratic voters? Yeah, data is really clear about that. Now, the counter is that right now we are seeing Kamala Harris do things as a candidate that no white man has ever been able to do as a candidate, drawing support from places that we've never seen support come from, drawing support from Republican strongholds that we've never seen it come from, doing the thing that we often measure white male candidates by the most, which is the money they raise, and outraising every other white male candidate that's ever come before her. And so, yeah, I certainly share concerns about what does it mean in these places where politics can be very dated and very centrist, to how will they approach a Black and Asian woman? How will they, how do they approach that kind of a candidate? In the same ways that I think because American politics can be a really wonderful pendulum, and when things go too far to one side, we push back. I think that right now Pennsylvania is filled with a bunch of moderates and a bunch of folks that are center right, that are looking at Donald Trump and they're thinking, that's just not, I'm Republican because I'm Catholic or because I'm Christian, and that person doesn't live those values. I'm Republican because I believe in fiscal responsibility, and that guy stiffs everybody. I'm a Republican because I believe in community, and he has none. Like I think there's a lot of Pennsylvanians that are doing math that goes far beyond the fact that Kamala Harris it presents as Black and has Indian heritage and is a woman.
So do you think Pennsylvania's going Harris this election?
Absolutely. I think Pennsylvania's going Harris. No question about it, right? Like the data says that we need, if Harris wins Pennsylvania, she stands a 91% chance of winning the election. If Donald Trump does, he has a 94% chance of winning the election. I think one of the things that we're seeing in Pennsylvania right now is a massive ground game of engagement from the Harris-Walz campaign that we are not seeing from the Trump campaign. Remember, Republicans in Pennsylvania passed the mail-in ballot law and then realized as soon as COVID happened how bad that was for them, and have subsequently tried every opportunity to declare their own law unconstitutional, and that has not happened. And so Pennsylvanians are going to start voting here, are now voting. And I think that what we're going to see is that thing that I remember in like the 90s and early 2000s on a lot of news stations, they used to talk about how the counties that surround Philadelphia, Bucks County, Berks, Chester County, Montgomery County, how they are sort of microcosms for how blue collar working class America votes. And I think we're going to see that again.
You know your data. Do you like read a bunch, or do you have like a
twink with a clipboard that tells you what
exactly.
You need to know?
Well, hold on, let's ask him. No, it's like all things. I bet I guarantee you, you guys have expertise in things that would blow my mind and that I know nothing about. And when somebody needs that, you can spit out some things about it that really matter to them. I know who my sports friends are. I know who my foodie friends are. In my friend's life, I'm the civil rights person, and I care deeply about politics as a way of accomplishing them. And so I should know my shit.
Are you worried about the Bradley effect at all? That people are that Kamala is polling better than she's going to actually do on election day because people are afraid to say to a pollster, "I'm not voting for her because she's a woman or because she's a woman of color."
Yeah, I think I have not learned all of the lessons in politics, but one of them that I think I've finally learned is that polls are bullshit. I have yet to see a poll that I honestly thought was truly predictive in nature, or a poll that I looked back upon and thought, oh, that was a really accurate poll of what was happening. I think the pool of who is being polled never ever makes any real sense to me. And every time I ever see anybody try to identify somebody that's a cross section of American voters, it's just the wackiest, screwiest people that couldn't get out of having to answer those questions. And so it's sort of like jury duty, where it's so easy to get out of jury duty that the people that are in jury duty either believe deeply in civic engagement, in which case, thank you, or you just didn't know how to get out of it. I feel like polling is just not doing. I think we're in this weird era where how we all exist digitally, how we all use phones, how we feel and respond about politics is just an utter sort of mishigas. And I don't think that we're accurately capturing it in polling. But so to answer your question, it's sort of how I feel about this massive groundswell of fundraising. It's nice. It doesn't mean you win. And so, every campaign I've ever been a part of, all the folks that ran my campaign say you spend to zero and you campaign like you're losing by 10 points. And that's what I see from the Harris campaign. They're also giving money, they're at a point right now where they're also spending money to help, members of Congress, recognizing that if we want the policies that the Harris-Walz campaign is promising us, if they win, that we also need a better Congress. And so I like to see that they're spending money and putting a focus on those races as well right now. That seems that's the sign of a very healthy race.
I've heard that the Harris Walz campaign is really, really good down ballot, and that was sort of why Uncle Joe decided to step away, was because that was the most compelling argument for him, was that the down ballot races are suffering, and she's sort of rectifying that. I wanted to pivot real quick and ask about the state of trans rights in Pennsylvania. How does it compare to the rest of the country? Trans people are the whipping post of the century so far, but especially in this election cycle. What are things like on the ground in Pennsylvania?
Not great, but better than they are in several other places. So to your point, right? So of the roughly 650 or so anti-LGBTQ bills that have been introduced across the country this year, if I had to guess, I'd say many more than half. I wouldn't, maybe not 2/3, but more than half are explicitly attacking attacking trans people. And we all kind of know where they get attacked, right? You're getting attacked issues of education, bodily autonomy, healthcare decisions, sports. I like to remind people,
sports and bathrooms.
Well, so no bullshit. It is statistically true that more Republican men in Congress have been arrested for sexual misconduct in public bathrooms than all trans people in American history. Right? We always talk about creating finding a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. This idea that trans people create any risk in public bathrooms is a truly manufactured problem, but it was a very effective one, right? It allowed Republican legislators across the country to introduce bills that they could slide into committees, slide into state legislatures, municipal legislatures all across the country to attack essentially the bodily autonomy of trans people very, very effectively, I might add. It's sort of, I feel somewhat in the way that I do about these book bans that are keeping trans kids from learning about other trans people, that are keeping cis kids from learning about trans people, and these attacks on the healthcare decisions that trans kids and parents are making. There is a sort of a bullshit ideology that trans people are under so much attack right now as a way to sort of peel them off from the rest of the rest of the queer communities, and maybe it's a divide and conquer approach. And I swear it is because there has never been a moment in LGBTQ plus history where we've advanced our rights without trans people at the sort of helm. Like trans people tend to be some of the most effective leaders of LGBTQ plus equality in our movement's history. And so by attacking trans people's ability to play sport, to gather, attacking their healthcare decisions, their ability to attacking their freedom of speech, at the same time that we're attacking trans kids, is about sort of picking off both our future and our sort of current leaders. And I wish more LGB people would understand that, I see more gay people and not truly lesbians or bi people, more gay people screwing up issues about trans equality, trans civil rights than I do almost anywhere else. And I'm very quick to point out that almost all of the rights that we think we enjoy as LGBTQ plus people were had with trans people at the helm of our civil rights movement. And so these attacks right now are very insidious. They're a very pointed, insidious way. And so in Pennsylvania, I'm happy to say all 26 Fortune 500 companies, for example, have trans inclusive policies in all of their businesses. That we have a Human Relations Act, which in our case covers housing, employment, and public accommodations. But we have not passed the Equality Act to include sexual orientation or gender identity because of the Comstock decision from the U.S. Supreme Comstock decision. There's a decision that came in June of 2020 on LGBTQ civil rights, that it can sort of extend those rights into employment law at the statewide level, but they're not good. So to answer your question, is are trans rights increasing in Pennsylvania? We finally have taken back control of part of the legislature after the gerrymander, and that's been a really, really good thing. There are now 5 out members of the General Assembly in Pennsylvania, and so there's never been a sort of better opportunity to advance trans rights in Pennsylvania.
Let's talk about Agenda Pack real quick. I know that's not directly tied to Pennsylvania specifically, but what kind of stuff are you paying attention to covering this cycle? What's your involvement there?
Sure, and it does. Luckily, it does impact Pennsylvania as well. So going on just about 3 years ago, a group of elected officials, campaign strategists, and political scientists started a PAC for the very particular purpose of using the sort of new approaches to gathering legislative data about elected officials and campaign data about voters. This won't surprise anybody, in the last 5, 6, 7 years, the ability to really evaluate elected officials based in a very data-driven approach, the ability to overlay data sets about voters and sort of voter trends and voter data has grown incrementally. And this group decided to use that approach to identify the most beatable bigots in America in any given election cycle. Who are the most anti-equality elected officials in the country, and comparing that with the list of elected officials in the country that are most likely to lose in a given election cycle with engagement from honest opposition. And so they're the group that went after the Moms for Liberty candidates, all those school board candidates, and they beat 14 of the 15 Moms for Liberty candidates in the last cycle. And so maybe 8 months or so ago, I got asked if I would join as a senior advisor. And I said yes, because the group of advisors for this organization are some of my favorite queer politicos in the country. It was both flattering to be around them, and I just enjoy watching them work. And this year, we used that data to identify the 10 most anti-LGBTQ elected officials in the country that we can beat this year. And 9 of them are at the statewide level. 1 is at a federal race. The 9 that are at the statewide level, 2 are in Florida, 2 are in North Carolina, 2 happen to be in Pennsylvania. And it became really clear about a month or so ago that what started as a project of a lot of queer professionals had just sort of grown to a level that it needed to have a sort of some singular leadership. And I was brought in to sort of fill that role, to be the new leader of it. At a critical time, I was brought in, I think, with about 45 days to go before the election. And this approach to beating the most anti-LGBTQ people each cycle that we can beat matters to me a lot. I see a lot of resources going towards races that are, where people cannot be beat. Some of the worst, the most heinous, the most sexist, the most xenophobic, the most homophobic and transphobic elected officials in the country are in very deeply entrenched districts where that homophobia, that transphobia is a part of the reason they get reelected. But not all of them. There are a lot of copycats. There are a lot of people that think they're leading the charge, that they're going to get the resources, they're going to get the money, they're going to get the attention for attacking our community. And they're in places where those attacks don't fly with their voters. And a lot of their voters just don't know. If you're an incumbent, all the messaging that your constituents are getting is coming from you. And unless the challengers are teaching them about you, and often, in fact, almost all the time, we tell Democratic challengers, you spend all of your money teaching people who you are, not who the incumbent is. And that works sometimes. But when we have these really heinous anti-LGBTQ elected officials, voters, not only do they deserve to know, we find that they really want to know. And so I'll tell you that one of my favorites is a guy that we're going after this year named Fabian Basabe in Miami. This guy was a gay New York socialite who married a woman, who had children, moved to Miami-Dade County, ran for office and won, and might be the most duplicitous elected official in office since George Santos. He, depending on what audience he's in front of, he's either queer or he's not. He's being accused of sexual harassment by multiple male staffers. He's got a bunch of biting incidents. And he's got this really fantastic gay challenger who's worked for Equality Florida for years, running against him. And, Fabian's one of our targets, he is one of the most beatable bigots in the country right now. And he's exactly the kind of person that he's come out swinging against LGBTQ rights. As I don't know if he's in the closet. I don't know. I think it depends on the day and the mood that he's in. But, people like that, not only do we not need them in office, we need honest brokers for issues and for civil rights, and he's not that.
He likes to bite or he likes to get bit?
Yep.
You both got stuck on the biting.
Yeah. Sorry. You said a lot of intelligent things after that, but I kept thinking in my head, biting incidents. What is
Google
that?
Google Fabian Basabe biting. That's what I want people to do. He has biting accusations.
Great.
Is he a vampire? Is he a secret gay vampire?
Honestly, in the same way that I think George Santos told everybody he was everything under the sun, it would not surprise me whatsoever if Fabian Basabe, he kind of looks a little vampiric, if that's a thing, but
yeah.
I don't know. He just seems like the most intense pathological liar. He was on a reality TV show with the Kardashians as like a trust fund kid. Wild.
Interesting.
But then there's also a federal race, for example. The only federal race we're in is a guy named Ken Calvert in Southern California. He won his election in 1991 by outing Mark Takano. And by like the late 90s, even Fox News was calling him the most corrupt member of Congress, or among the most corrupt members of Congress, because he was figuring out, because of his committee service, where federal appropriations were going to go for infrastructure or energy or whatnot, and buying places there and then flipping them and selling them. And he's worth over $20 million now as a member of Congress for 30 years. And he's got a phenomenal gay challenger as well. But last year, Palm Springs, California got drawn into his district. He's been eking through these wins by small margins, and now he's got all the voters of Palm Springs, which we've got to teach about, that Ken Calvert has come out against LGBTQ rights at every single point in his career he's ever had the opportunity to. And he's used his time in office as the most prolific sort of insider trader that our government's ever seen.
On the Agenda Pack website, you have the 2024 Hate Squad. Are these members of the Hate Squad?
These are members of the Hate Squad. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's people like Susan Palencia in Florida, Joe Emmerich in Pennsylvania, Valerie Gayish in Pennsylvania. They're people that have helped lead the charge on banning trans kids from playing sports or being in bathrooms. The people that have opposed our LGBTQ equality and housing and employment, those things.
Gotcha. And what is Agenda Pack's role? Do they provide funding, or how do you help support some of these campaigns?
Yeah, so we do that. We do what we call classically is called an independent expenditure. We were talking earlier about how Democrats are taught to spend their money about who they are. And I was I was taught this as a challenger the first time I ran, and I was taught it every election as an incumbent, that every dollar and every resource you raise, you spend teaching people who you are. You don't teach them your opponent's name. You don't teach them about your opponent's record. And that I think there's this, it's not a when they go low, we go high kind of a thing. I think it's often borne out in the data that it's a waste of money to, for example, many Democratic voters don't want to see attack ads. And so, depending on the framing of a message, you're either informing them about your opponent's awful record, or you're attacking them, and you have to be careful. But who that has benefited the most are these candidates, the worst of the worst, the most heinous, the most anti-equality elected officials tend to benefit from this idea that Democrats have about not sort of coming for the people that they are running against, even though Democratic voters say they want to know information about sexist, racist, xenophobic elected officials, especially if they are their elected officials. And so what we do is we get creative using a bunch of LGBTQ political talent to come up with campaigns that teach voters in these districts specifically about the issues of these terrible elected officials that are most likely to get them to vote. And it's not always anti-LGBTQ stuff. In Palm Springs, I want every Palm Springs voter to read billboards on that one highway driving into Palm Springs about Ken Calvert's, homophobia and his transphobia. But there's going to be a district in Florida where the thing that people care the most about was an insurance expenditure. Yeah, we know that person is also one of the bigger LGBTQ bigots, but we're trying to get her out of office. And her constituents want to know about her actions with respect to her fiscal policy. And she's had terrible fiscal policy. So we'll focus on that. But it's everything from, when before I got here, when they eliminated the 14 of the 15 folks running with Moms for Liberty, they got into their national conference and essentially hung door hangers on every single door at their national conference about their transphobia, their homophobia, the works. It's nice having sort of creative queer people doing creative queer political content, especially when it's about calling out the worst actors in the country.
You're giving me some optimism for the future by both talking about how you think Pennsylvania is going to fall in the election and by talking about identifying, seats that are open or risky for incumbents and that you're going after them. Do you feel optimistic about the future?
You know what? It's so funny because, like a lot of people, especially somebody who's spent 10 years in politics, I was in a bulletproof vest my last 3 years in office. Optimism is hard to come by, except that I am deeply optimistic right now in politics for a couple of reasons. One, I think we are going to see a very substantial Harris win. I think the win number is going to be very high, close to an unprecedented high in this era. Of course, I understand that there are going to be very serious issues with the Electoral College. I think that if we get out past about the 4.5 million vote mark, which I think we're going to go way past, then the Electoral College isn't as much of an issue. But there will be issues with the Trump campaign filing lawsuits in states to stop the certification of results. In states where Supreme Courts can't just go down and pluck out a lower court case where they have to kind of work their way through the courts, I think we'll see that happen. And so I still think there's a lot of craziness that's going to happen with this election. But, for me, one of the antidotes to broken American government, current American government, is more women in office, more people of color in office, more LGBTQ people, more second-generation immigrants. Not just because we're here and in a representative democracy, we should also be in government, but because the data says we do really good things in government when we are, that we're more collaborative, that we know how to focus on other people's hardship that we haven't just borne ourselves. And more queer people, more people of color, more second-generation immigrants are running for office right now and winning than we have seen in the last 15, 20 years. And so I think two things happen. I think a lot of new voters in this election cycle, be they young voters or people just new to the process, are going to, for the first time in maybe a generation, really see the fruits of their voting labors. And they're going to feel responsible for the change that we're starting to see. And I think that's going to create a little bit more change in 2 years. We're on the precipice of electing a trans woman to the U.S. Senate, to having 3, maybe 4 out people running for the presidency or the vice presidency or cabinet positions. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for those of us that believe deeply in equality and a sort of progressive approach to it, to play cleanup and get rid of a lot of this sort of MAGA detritus that's going to try to sort of flex its muscle in the wake of a really awful Trump defeat. And that's what we're here for. That's what I'm here for. We're going to look back in 20 years on this horrendous political era, and we're going to be reminded that it inspired the most integrated, the most progressive, the most intersectional change in American politics in 200 years, and it's going to propel us for the next 200 years.
Wow.
Well, you don't seem like you want to use the word optimistic, but it sounds pretty fucking optimistic to me.
Yeah. I'm not new by it, but I am fully sort of realizing how much I think is going to change if we do right now what we can do.
I want to change gears a little bit, go back to your personal life. Where are you recording from today?
Where could I possibly be? I'm at my future in-laws home. My future in-laws home in Connecticut. Yeah.
Your future in-laws. So what does that say about your romantic life? Are you off the market?
I am off the market. Yeah. So in my last term in office, I chose to retire from the House of Representatives in part to run a close friend. And I ran for higher office and I lost. And in that process, I met the person and that is my person. I met and fell in love with someone. And last October, we got engaged and we're getting married next September.
I hear that Gayish had a role in this.
Yeah.
I want some of the credit.
Yeah, not only some of the credit, guys, like all the credit. I don't know when it was at some point that I learned this. So Alex and I met in Provincetown during the one-day crossover between Twink Week and Bear Week. Right, it's called Circuit Week, but I go up for Bear Week. One of my best friends in the world is the senator for the Cape, for Provincetown. He's a wonderful sort of ginger bear in his 30s, and I slept on his couch for a lot of Bear Weeks. And 3.5 years ago, I was late getting to his place, and he'd already gone off to high tea, so I had to meet him there. And I showed up, and it was kind of on my own, feeling really awkward after an 8-hour drive. And Alex, my now partner, came up and introduced himself to me, and then thanked me for the work that I was doing. And he was so fucking cute and adorable about it that my friends invited him on to dinner with us, and we've been together ever since. And at some point, he said to me, or I think I heard him telling the story of the way that he had any idea who I was, is that you guys had on some episode talked about this gay guy that had gotten elected from Pennsylvania. And one of you, I'm going to think it was you, Kyle, thought that I was cute and said so. And Alex Googled me, and I guess at that point started following me, and realized really quickly that our values matched up a lot, that are the policies that I cared deeply about are the things that he cared about. And so I'm glad he came up and said something to me about it. It changed the course of my life.
Wow.
Do you know that our listeners are crazy?
I mean, guys, everybody's crazy, right? Everybody's a little crazy. I mean, not to pass judgment on either of you, but I'm pretty nutty myself. And yeah, listen, I don't know. There is a shortage in this world of us, of people who tell the people that mean something to them, that have impacted them, that they care about it. I don't know. I think we all think we're all too cool to tell people nice things about them, or that inspire us about them, or that we think we can only tell them that if they're going to share something similar about us. And I don't believe that. I love telling the people around me what I love about them and what inspires me about them. And while I like a lot of people, I don't always take compliments really well. I was genuinely flattered when he came up and said hi, and I also really wanted to sleep with him. And so it was just like it was like the combination of all the right gay things.
You took it well when it was from Alex.
Wow, man.
That's what I heard.
Something like that.
Okay. When I tell this story, I'm going to say Gayish is the reason that Brian Sims is getting married, and we have 100% of the credit for that. That's
No
how
lies.
I'm going to say. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, no lies. Honestly, there's a phrase in Latin, res ipsa loquitur. The thing speaks for itself. It's implied that you guys are the reason I'm getting married.
Yes.
I'll never feel any other way.
Excellent.
That's
Excellent.
beautiful for me.
We did a whole episode teaching our listeners how to effectively stalk someone. So I think,
Yeah, strangely, we somehow missed episode 107 when we were listening. Huh.
Yeah.
The early years.
Are you going to be in Pennsylvania forever?
You know what? I'm not even in Pennsylvania now. I moved out of Philadelphia right after my term ended. I kind of went on the road for a year. I had like a walkabout after 10 years in one place. I did 3 months during the winter in Provincetown. I did 2 months in Berkeley with my partner while he was wrapping up some schooling out there. And then we went to LA and then Hong Kong. I wrapped up last year in Hong Kong before I moved to Manhattan in January. We got a little like cabin on a lake in Jersey and a smaller apartment in Manhattan. Yeah, I spent my whole queer adulthood avoiding moving into Manhattan, and now I live in Hell's Kitchen, and it's great.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I'm back in Pennsylvania a lot, including next week. Next Saturday with Queers for Kamala, I am taking a group of people to go canvass in Pennsylvania. They just did it yesterday, knocked on about 5,000 doors in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And so there's lots of room to sign up to join the Brat Bus if you're anywhere near New York City to come down and knock doors with us in Pennsylvania.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspective, your experience, and your optimism with us. I don't often leave Gayish feeling better about the world, but this time I do. So thanks. Do you have anything, any last final words, especially for those in Pennsylvania?
Every Pennsylvanian I've ever met hates the fact that they are the sort of epicenter of the political world every cycle, but it has never been truer now. Every single person that's in Pennsylvania or has a connection to Pennsylvania owes it to themselves, to their neighbors, to their daughters, to their future, to do everything they can right now to help get out the vote. And it doesn't take a lot. Send a text, pick up a phone call, send an email, remind somebody why their vote could be really, really important for your life. And the hero effect goes into it sort of happens. And that's it. If you tell someone that they are your hero, they will behave more like your hero. So let some people in Pennsylvania know that you need them, and they're more likely to behave in a way that I think is really supportive of us and the future.
That's wonderful.
Oh, well, let's take a break and call a Pennsylvanian then, Kyle, or text some.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's take a break.
All right, let's take a break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
So, are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest, but first, former Representative Brian Sims, where can people find out more about you, what you're up to? Tell us all the things.
You can go to my OnlyFans page at OnlyFans. I'm like everybody else. I'm on all social media. I think Instagram is the best of social media lately, so I'm easy to find on Instagram. It's Brian with an I, Sims with one M, and PA for Pennsylvania, not Prince Albert. I get asked that a lot. Brian Sims PA. It's easy to find on social media. And agendapack.org. Come take a look at the 10 candidates that we're targeting. Figure out if they have any impact on your life, or if you want to have any impact on the people that they're impacting. Please join the fight. Get in, get involved, get engaged. If it's not with us, find a local candidate, a local race that matters a lot to you, and show people what your values look like.
Agendapack.org.
Agendapack.org.
Excellent. Well, our website is gayishpodcast.com.
We are also on Instagram at Gayish Podcast.
Our hotline, you can send us text messages or leave us your voicemails. It's 5855-GAYISH. That's 585-542-9474. Standard rates apply.
Our email is gayishpodcast@gmail.com.
And our physical mailing address is Post Office Box 19882, Seattle, Washington, 98109. Do the 4 R's, everybody.
Yeah.
And one of them is not Republican.
Don't do Republicans. Save a Democrat, write a Republican. Wait, no, hold on. Rate, review, subscribe, and recommend.
There you go, Kyle. You did it.
We would appreciate it. Do you want to do our Gayest and Straightest?
Okay, let's do our Gayest and Straightest. I'm happy to go first.
Do it.
As I mentioned earlier, I am in India on assignment for work, not the show. Anyway, there are no gay bars here. I looked. No local gay bar review forthcoming, just so you know. But
wow.
At least not in Hyderabad. But the straightest thing about me this week is tomorrow night I'm going to a dinner and there's a dress code, and the dress code is traditional Indian attire. So the straightest thing was the 5 white dudes that had the one Indian girl on my team take us all shopping to tell us what to wear. It just felt like the days of my ex-wife dressing me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
She's like, you're going to buy this, you're going to buy that, you're going to buy that, and you're going to wear them. I'm like, great. Excellent. Thank you.
The worst of getting bossed around and cultural appropriation.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I had to be like, just tell me the best thing I'm dressed for a wedding. Do I look like the president or something? Like what? Give me the right vibe, because I have no idea what's going on culturally whatsoever. But then the gayest thing about me this week, my friend Ian, who is straight, but he is an ally. We were shopping for traditional 3-piece attire, where it's a like a long shirt that goes like down to your knees, and then a vest over it with like these pajama pants. And I picked out the tops first, and the clerk said, "Does he need a bottom?" And Ian said, "That's complicated." I thought it was hilarious. I can't get over it. He's just like the most straight-laced dude ever, and like made a gay joke on my behalf in a foreign country. Kyle, how about you?
How about me? My gayest is only. I was originally going to talk about how slutty I've been this week. That would have been my gayest, except the only gayer thing that I could have done is I watched the movie Funny Girl. I think that's gayer than gay sex. I have never seen it before. I am not a Barbara Streisand gay, so after seeing this movie, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to understand. One of my friends is determined to educate me on Barbara Streisand. So that is my gayest. My straightest is, I said last week that I was getting my hair cut, and that was going to be my gayest, but it's my straightest because I waited so long to get my hair cut. Gays are supposed to, I think, be a little bit more like up to date and fashionable than I am. So it took me a little bit. It takes until my hair looks gross till I'm like, I should get this cut. So the fact that I took so long to get it cut is my straightest.
Your haircut threshold is your straightest.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it.
Are you a tech billionaire or are you indigent?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm just lazy. Brian, what about you? What's your gayest and straightest?
So I'm gonna do them in reverse. My straightest last Saturday I was the captain of my college football team, and it was we had a football reunion, which was not the straightest thing that I did all week. The straightest thing that I did all week was the handshakes at my football reunion. For fuck's sake, you would have thought that we were like knights of the round table, like gripping up each other's forearms. Like it was very Game of Thrones. These are guys that I've loved to death. I've seen every one of them cry, bleed, throw up. I've seen girls reject every single one of them, but somehow getting together for a reunion required the butchest, most toxic handshakes that I've ever given out, and me included. It wasn't just that I was a recipient. I realized really quickly, like, oh, this is what we're doing now. Like, all right, well, I've got some grip strength. I'm a gay man. Like, let's do this. So, yeah. So the handshakes at my college football reunion were the straightest thing that I did all week. The gayest thing I did all week, I did on Friday. I was in New York for a wedding. My fiance's close friend getting married, and we checked into our little hotel, and it looked kind of like a roadside motel. It was only 2 stories, and you park your car right in front of your door. And we'd gone in to drop our stuff off, and I was walking back out to get something from the car, and the stupidestly hottest person ever was who I guess is in the room above us, was coming down the stairs, and I just stopped like deer, like stopped, looked him right in the eyes, and ran back into my room and slammed the door and yelled, "Babe!" I was like, "There's this super hot guy." Like, I was like one of those like inflatable, like roadside, inflatable tube arm guys in our hotel, while I was like screaming about the super hot guy staying above us at the motel, which was the gayest thing I did all day long.
I think reports of hot dudes is one of the best parts about being in a gay relationship. It really is.
Well, we don't ever cross over. Like to look at us is to know that we are not, like, we don't have the same type. We're each other's type, but we don't have the same type. And so what's become fun as a gay couple is trying to find the elusive crossover. Sure. Right? Like who is this unicorn that might be hot to both of us? Because it's a rarity. The times I'm like, whoa, check out that guy. My partner is kind of twink blind. Like, if you're under 30, he might not even know you exist. Like he just thinks it's a pair of like sunglasses and shoes floating down the street by themselves. And so yeah, we don't have the same type. So when it does happen, that's one of my favorite things about being a gay guy, is just to be able to be like, ooh, look how hot that guy is, and not have it be like, wow, how dare you.
Yeah, I'm robbing the cradle. Thank God for twink blindness. Well,
I don't have daddy blindness, or I wouldn't be able to see any of my friends, but the twink blindness is real.
I love it. I love it. Well, Brian, thanks so much for being on the show. Thanks for sharing your wisdom about Pennsylvania with us, and just being a generally delightful person.
Guys, the pleasure was all mine. This was way cooler than I thought it was even going to be. And honestly, I'm real grateful for the fact that I can 100% credit you with my relationship. And I'm glad to leave you a little bit more optimistic than I found you.
Kyle, we got that on tape.
I know, it's recorded forever and ever.
And thanks to the entire state of Pennsylvania in advance for voting for Kamala Harris. Thank you.
Yep.
There it is.
Exactly. And thank you to our super gap producers. Thank you to Locomotive, Kaylee Adams, Kit Oliver, Kobe Gordon, Squoggle, Pip, Andrew Bugby, William Bryant, John Crowley, Yost Osel, Jonathan Montanius, Forrest Nail, Steve Douglas, Explosive Ladanya, Michael Covington, Just Jamie, Thomas B, Dusty Sands, A. Coleman, Chris Kachatorians, and Jerome York. Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your money. That's it. This has been Gayish from the Chris Kachatorian Studios. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz. Until next week, be butch, be fabulous, be you. See you next week.
See you next week if I don't die.
Jesus.
Oh, God. I have heartburn.
I farted real bad during that.
Good work.
It was a bad one. Even I was like, oof.
Poor Reynolds.
He's right behind me. He probably fucking loved it. He's a dirty, dirty boy.
Click stop now.